Welcome, everyone. I'm Kate McKenzie, and I am the co-director of the Secret Marathon film. I'm also the co-founder of the Secret 3K and currently the director of story and culture. And it is wonderful to be with you here today. I would love to hear from you and hear if you have done the Secret 3K yet today. If you haven't yet registered for the Secret 3K, it's not too late. So we encourage you to do so as we run, walk, and work together for equality. In fact, you can register for the Secret 3K just using the link that I've got here below, secret3k.com. And we would love to have you join us during this week of International Women's Day. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the film, The Secret Marathon, it's a documentary film that shares the story of the first women to run a marathon in Afghanistan. And, I had the pleasure of actually going over with my crew to Afghanistan in 2016 and filming these inspiring women as they shared about their fight for gender equality. And today I'm looking forward to hearing your questions about the Secret Marathon. So please add your questions, post a comment. I would love to hear from you. Great to hear from those of you that are sharing about your 3K. I just see a shout out from Amanda who just finished hers. Congratulations, Amanda. That is awesome. So cool to see that people are participating in the Secret 3K. And, the Secret Marathon really was the thing that that inspired the creation of the Secret 3K in the first place. And so, for those of you that are participating today in the Secret 3K, I would invite you to see the film either before or after your run. And I have some great news too. This film is now available to watch around the world on Vimeo. So it is free, it is available anytime, anywhere. And this is actually the story that inspired the creation of the Secret 3K. So I hope that you'll watch it and share it with others so that we can share this important story of hope with the world. And for those of you that haven't seen the film yet, I'll just share with you that you can see the film through Vimeo. And so I'll put the link up here so you can see it as well as you can check out in the comments. We'll put the link there as well. So hope you can see it. And we've got a question here from Jacqueline who's asking, she's saying the Secret Marathon film is amazing. What prompted you to make it available to stream? Great question, Jacqueline. And so many things have changed right now in Afghanistan. Back in the summer of 2021, the Taliban took over the country, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. We were, texting and trying to communicate with our friends, seeing if they were okay. And, many of them were trying to get onto planes and trying to get out of the country because just by their association with things like the Marathon of Afghanistan or by participating in female sport, they were now in danger and they were now in a terrible situation where not only them, but their families were no longer safe. And so we were watching this all unfold and it was awful, and trying to do what we could to help people get out of the country, trying to help write letters if we could to various governments to see if we could get any assistance for folks. And, I'm really happy to share that all of the women that were connected to the Secret Marathon film are now out of Afghanistan and are now resettling in other countries around the world. But that, of course, too, is hugely challenging, right? I mean, resettling in a whole new country, trying to learn new languages, trying to figure out how you're going to manage. And so we were thinking, well, how can we help? And we really felt like now was the time to share this story of the Secret Marathon with the world, because as Afghans are coming into our communities, as we're welcoming refugees into our communities, we hope that people will greet those folks with open arms. Because what I saw and what I hope you'll see in the film is that Afghanistan is a place full of incredible people, resilient people, and people that will make our communities better. And so I hope that when people see this film, they will feel that way too, and that they will want to be able to join us in working together to help these folks have a really good resettlement. So that was a big motivation for it. Thanks so much for that question, Jacqueline. I've got another question here from Amanda who's saying, I love the film. Thanks, Amanda. And I'm curious, can my daughter ask her teacher to show the Secret Marathon film in her class? Yes, absolutely. You know what? When we started the Secret Marathon film, we always dreamed that this would be a resource for schools and for teachers. And so actually, for myself, I am a teacher. I used to teach junior high. And so I really wanted this to be something that could be shown, that could help to inform that next generation of youth. And so I'm really pleased to let you know that not only can teachers and schools, youth groups, Girl Guides be able to screen the film, but we have a ton of really great resources. And so I'll just post that here below, that those folks, whether you're a parent or you are a leader of any group, we've got resources for you. So now when you go to our website, you can actually find discussion guides, both for adults, for children. If you're a parent, there's even some cheat sheets to help you answer questions that are difficult that kids might ask. How do you answer a question about, why are there landmines? What is a landmine? How do you answer questions about, what's happening for women and girls in Afghanistan, or what some of the cultural differences are. So we've got your back. We're there to help you out. We've got lessons plans for teachers, as well as even food pairings if you want to host this with your women's group or things like that. We've got ways to really make your screening a huge success. So definitely check out those resources, because I think you'll find them a really great way to do it. And we always love hearing from folks. So if you have someone that wants to screen the film, let us know. We'd love to help you out. And I see we have some other questions coming in here. One from Bree Fitzpatrick, who's saying, thanks for the great start to the day of Secret 3K. Yeah, Bree, I saw that you are one of our finishers. You've already completed your Secret 3K. Congrats. And she's asking, do you have some other thoughts or links for ways that we can continue to support pushing this great work forward? Absolutely. Thanks for asking that. And what I would really encourage you to do is to get more involved. And so actually on that resources page, that link that I just shared, there's a whole section there that talks about how you can get involved more. And for you, that might be, participating in the Secret 3K. We always love to have people joining us for the Secret 3K, because it's a way that we can support the charities we believe in. So this year, we're actually supporting the charities 261 Fearless, which supports women and all around the world through running. And we're also supporting the Afghan Sports Trust, who are helping those women and men that I mentioned that were part of the leadership team for the Marathon of Afghanistan, helping them to resettle, but also helping current sports initiatives in Afghanistan, helping people to be able to continue to use sport as a way to talk about gender equality. And we are supporting Canadian Women for Women in Afghanistan, who is supporting giving humanitarian aid to folks on the ground in Afghanistan, as well as providing education opportunities for women and girls. And so I believe that this is the path forward. I think these organizations are doing incredible work. And so I would encourage you to check that out. And it's on our resources page that I've put there in the links for you folks. And you can also then see it in the chat there if you want to find out a little bit more and get involved. I definitely encourage you to do so. And we're always looking for volunteers for the Secret 3K as well. And so if that's something that interests you, then definitely stay tuned, because we'll be looking for more volunteers as we head into our next year, into 2023. So please let us know if you want to join us there as well. I see another question here from Gerardo Marquez, who's saying, what is your hope for this year's 3K race, given what is currently happening in the world? Thanks for that, Gerardo, because, I think I'm sharing about what's been happening in Afghanistan, but obviously it's very much on my mind what's happening in Ukraine as well. And I think of other countries too. Just this past week, I had a chance to hear from our friends over at 261 Fearless, and one of them shared the story with me of a woman who they're training as a coach from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And she said that this has been the first time in her life that she gets to run and feel free, rather than trying to run out of fear from someone else. And that just really struck me, because, this is why we started the Secret 3K. We started it because we wanted people to be able to have an opportunity to run freely, even if that was only one night of the year, that by coming together and showing our solidarity and our belief that the world should be a place in which every person could go for a run or a walk freely, that could be a reality. And so I think I truly believe this is a movement for equality. And so when I think of our friends in Ukraine, I think, how do we create a peaceful space in which those folks could run outside and not have to be dealing with air sirens and craziness that's happening there. And I think of our friends in Afghanistan, of women who cannot even go outside in public right now, and of girls who can no longer access education beyond primary school because of new legislation brought in by the Taliban. And I think, when we are allowed to run, when we are allowed to walk, we are allowed to move in public as women, that says a lot about our society, and it says a lot about our privilege. And so I believe that that privilege should be extended to every single person on this planet, and that it shouldn't be something that your gender dictates whether or not you're allowed to move in public. So that's my hope. I hope that we see more people participating. I was so excited this morning to wake up and see folks joining us from Ecuador, from Australia, from New Zealand, from all around the world. And I hope we'll continue to see more and more people joining us from all around the world. I've got another great question here from Jacqueline, who's saying, can you explain the difference between the full-length version of the film versus the children's version? Yes. So actually, I'm so excited that you asked about this, Jacqueline, because we now have a new children's adaptation Secret Marathon film. So the original feature-length film is 76 minutes. That's a little long for our little kiddos, right? And so we wanted to create a version of the film that was specifically geared towards our audience of 10 years and younger. And so we created a children's adaptation thanks to generous contribution from the Kimmett Foundation. And the Lindsay Kimmett Memorial Fund is just an incredible group that said, we want to help you make more education resources available. And so together with them, we were able to create a version of the film that is only 30 minutes long, and that is now rated G. So any things that could be concerning for that slightly younger audience is now, those pieces have been removed to allow for a viewing experience that's more appropriate for their age. And I should mention that the original film is just rated PG, so we do encourage parental guidance, and that's why we offer a lot of discussion guides for parents and for teachers to be able to have great discussions. We really hope that both of these films, whether you're watching the children's version or you're watching the full-length feature film, that it will spark discussion and get you talking about gender equality with your group. So yeah, that's kind of one of the exciting things that we're seeing happening. I have another question coming in here from Noor. Noor asks, how can we support not just today, but year round? And so I would encourage you to think about what can you do in your community. I think one of the things might be to join us, for the Secret 3K, whether that's as a participant or as a volunteer, showing your solidarity and your support for everyone's right to run freely in their community. We'd love to have you participate there. But I think it's also thinking about how can you welcome people in your community? So whether those are Afghans or whether those are other people that are resettling, how do we embrace those that may be different from us and create inclusive and accessible spaces? And so I think that's something every single one of us can do. And it's easy to look at someone who looks different from us and say, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm not going to talk to that person. It might be uncomfortable. But, one of the things I found when I was training for the Secret Marathon was that in order to be respectful of Afghan culture, I was going to wear hijab or modest clothing, as would be required by women in Afghanistan. And so I had the pleasure of reaching out to a group called the Calgary Muslim Marathoners. And I asked them, hey, I don't actually know how to do this. And I especially don't know how to do this while running. Like, what's the appropriate hijab for running? How do I keep it in place? How do I be respectful? And you know what? The Calgary Muslim Marathoners welcomed me into their home. They showed me all their tips and tricks. We had a great conversation, and it just really showed to me the kind of person I'd like to be in my community, as someone that welcomes those that are different and has that opportunity to build community. And so I think of that as an example of something that all of us can do. And I think too, sometimes it's easy to feel overwhelmed with what's happening in the world, to look at what's happening in Afghanistan and say, well, what can I do? How do I possibly make a difference? And I think I really encourage people to check out the charities that we've worked with. And so you can find more about them through the secretmarathon.com and, make a donation, find an organization that speaks to what you really believe in, whether that's education for women and girls or access to sport, or support for gender equality. Each of these people each of these charities are ones that we believe in and we've worked with. And so I encourage you to find one that's maybe a good fit for you. We've got a question here from Laura, who's saying, that she loved the film, felt so inspired as a runner, which is amazing. I hope any of you that haven't seen it yet, that you go out and watch it, because I think it'll really inspire your run. I know I've seen it a million times and it still gives me goosebumps, still makes me feel inspired to go for a run. And Laura's asking, can you tell me why you feel running specifically is so helpful for the women you met in Afghanistan? I asked Zainab, who is the first woman to ever run the marathon of Afghanistan, I asked her, why do you run? It's incredibly difficult for her to even just go for a training run outside. People were throwing rocks at her. They were insulting her. She was receiving threats from terrorists, to herself and to her family. And so I wanted to understand what made her keep going. And she said, she told me that she runs because it makes her feel free. And I love that answer. And as I started interviewing more and more women in Afghanistan, that's what they each kept telling me, was that they loved running because it gave them that sense of freedom. And, I can relate to that. And I think a lot of us can, is that running is this thing that allows us to clear our heads, to clear our minds, and to move forward, with our lives in a good and a positive way. And I think it's incredible, the power of movement. I think of Clara Hughes and her statement that, movement is medicine. And I really believe that. I really believe that movement helps us to be able to feel better mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And I think that's what I resonate with the women of Afghanistan, is that feeling of freedom, whether that's that mental freedom, emotional freedom, whichever it is, right? That I think that's why a lot of us run, is to feel free. I've got a question here that's come in from Mel, and Mel is asking, how can we continue to inspire each other all year to foster and facilitate gender equality, and what other actions can we participate in? Great question, Melanie. I really hope these are the kinds of questions people ask when they watch the film. And so, I'd say first off, like, if you haven't had a chance to share the film with some of your friends and family members, your colleagues, do so, and maybe even host a screening in your community, because it's a great way to start that conversation. I think, what I noticed while I was working on this film, and part of the reason that it inspired the creation of the Secret 3K, was that, unfortunately, it's not just in Afghanistan where people don't feel safe to run. A lot of women, when I came back to Canada, told me that they don't always feel safe to run. Often when it's at night, or when they're alone, or in certain neighborhoods. And so I think we still have a long ways to go. This isn't just an Afghanistan issue. This is a universal issue. And when I talk to our friends over at 261 Fearless, who are creating running clubs for women all around the world, they talk about the need to have these running clubs as a way where women can come together and participate in sports safely. And so for a lot of women, it still doesn't feel comfortable for them to go for a run, on their own or at night. And so I think maybe it is inviting someone to go for a run with you so that they do feel safer. Maybe it is supporting your local running club to be able to allow for those opportunities to continue. I think it's also in looking at our workplaces. How do we continue to support gender equity in our workplaces? I think, we're still seeing that there's a lot of room that needs to be made, particularly around supporting women through maternity leaves, or supporting parental leaves where both parents take opportunities away from work. How do we encourage and facilitate, that there isn't gender discrimination in our workplaces? How do we encourage that women get paid equally? These are all conversations that I think we need to be asking and saying, how can I be part of making a difference here? How can I help to move policy forward in my organization? So great question there, Mel. I love that there's another question here from Laura, who's asking, do you have any specific examples of how we can increase our accessibility and create safer places for diversity in our running communities here? It's a fantastic question. And I think, one of the things that's come out of a lot of what we've seen over the last couple of years during COVID was that, unfortunately, we have been seeing where it's not safe, not just for women to run in certain locations, but there's also these intersectionalities. So for Indigenous women, for Black women, there's even more barriers that can be in place there. And so I read an article that was published a couple of years ago that talked about, whether or not what the rates were of people running in their neighborhoods. And some of the research showed that for people that were Black, that were in predominantly white neighborhoods, they often did not feel safe to go for a run in their neighborhood. And when I think of, some of you that might be familiar with issues like the Run with Maud, I think of, violence that's been perpetrated against Black people. And I think, this is a huge issue. And it's something that we as the running community need to tackle and need to get better at. And so, through the Secret 3K, we've really tried to encourage diversity in the people that are participating, look for ways to remove barriers and to encourage, people of all cultures, all backgrounds, all races to join us. And I think each of us has to ask, how do we make our spaces more accessible? And so I think that might be with your local run club. How do you invite, folks of different backgrounds to join? How do you be one of those people that's really welcoming? And then how do we build spaces so that when people show up, they feel welcomed, right? So I think of that for myself as the importance of doing, Indigenous land acknowledgements to recognize, the cultures that have been here far beyond when we have been here, to think of how do the images we use, how do the words we use invite people from all different groups to participate. And so I was really proud that for Secret 3K this year that we were able to have 5 ambassadors for the Secret 3K, all from totally different walks of life and different backgrounds, that could speak about why they run the Secret 3K. And I think that's one of the things we need to do is we need to each ask ourselves, how are we sharing and promoting different stories? And so that might even just be even on your Instagram feed, right? Of like looking for some amazing organizations like Black Girls Run, for example, and just giving them a shout out on your stories, right? Looking for opportunities to promote, support, and praise the things that are good that we're seeing in our diverse communities. I think that's all the questions that we have for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I really appreciate these fantastic questions. And I would just encourage you again to, if you have not yet seen the Secret Marathon film, now is the perfect time to go see it. You can see the film at vimeo.com/The Secret Marathon. For those of you that aren't familiar with Vimeo, it's just like YouTube. It's just a little bit different. It's specific for filmmakers. And so check that out. We'd love to have you see the film. I'd love to hear what you think. And I'll also encourage you that if you have not yet registered for the Secret 3K, it's not too late. You can join us and you can take that important step to run, walk, and work together with us for equality. So I wish you all great runs, great walks this week during the week of International Women's Day. And I hope you just have a wonderful time as you feel free in your run. Thanks, everyone.